Hello, everyone, and welcome to Markets Talk, your weekly market update from Daba Finance, where we make African markets, particularly Francophone Africa, simple, clear, and useful for every investor. We start with good news. The BRVM moved higher again this week. The stock market stayed positive, the main indexes advanced, and buyers clearly dominated sellers. For investors, that means one simple thing: confidence remains present across the regional market. For the week of June 29th to July 3rd, 2026, the BRVM composite rose by 2.20%, closing at 459.70 points. The BRVM 30 gained 2.36%, reaching 216.15 points. The BRVM Prestige advanced by 0.70% to 176.37 points. And the BRVM Principal delivered the strongest index performance, rising by 3.81% to 333.69 points. Why does this matter? Because when several indexes rise together, it shows that the rally is not only driven by one or two stocks, the movement is broader. That is often a healthier signal for individual investors, families building long-term wealth, and entrepreneurs looking to invest part of their cash. Market activity was also strong. Trading volume increased by 27.13%, reaching 13,473 shares. However, total transaction value declined by 11.36% to 8.2148 billion CFA francs. In simple terms, more shares changed hands, but the average value per trade was lower. This can mean more activity in lower-priced stocks or a more spread-out market across different shares. The equity market capitalization also rose by 2.20%, reaching 17,709.3 billion CFA francs. Market capitalization is the total estimated value of listed companies. When it rises, it means investors are valuing those companies more highly. Now let's look at the top stocks of the week. The best performance came from Ecobank Transnational Incorporated, also known as ETIT. The stock continued its rally, gaining 27.03% to close at 47 CFA francs. When a stock rises this fast, it usually reflects strong investor interest. But it also calls for discipline. A sharp rally can create opportunity, but it can also lead to profit-taking. The second best performer was Sicor Côte d'Ivoire, up 18.72% to 5,200 CFA franc. In third place, Total Sénégal gained 15.57%, closing at 4,145 CFA franc. This top three tells us something interesting. The week's gains were not only concentrated in banks. Other sectors also participated, making the market more dynamic. Among the most actively traded stocks, BOA Côte d'Ivoire led the market with 1.232 billion CFA francs in traded value, representing 12.46% of total market transactions. Société Générale Côte d'Ivoire followed with 668.9 million CFA francs, and ETIT came next with 557.4 million CFA francs traded. Once again, banking stocks remained at the center of investor attention. But a strong market review must also look at the losers. Uniwax Côte d'Ivoire fell by 22.67% to 1,535 CFA francs. The market reacted to the publication of a 2025 annual loss of 624 million CFA francs, after the company had previously reported a much stronger half-year profit. For investors, this is an important reminder. Never look only at the share price. You must also understand earnings, margins, debt, cash flow, and exceptional items. Overall, 34 stocks ended the week higher, while 13 declined. That is a positive market signal. But it does not mean investors should buy everything. It means the market is active, and investors need to be selective, disciplined, and well-informed. Now let's turn to bonds. After 2 weeks of decline, the bond market returned to positive territory. Its market capitalization rose by 0.30%, reaching 13,146.9 billion CFA francs. Bond trading covered 1,224,967 securities, for a total value of 11.136 billion CFA francs. The main driver of the week in bonds was Senegal's 6.60% 2025 to 2030 government bond, which we can simply call a 5-year bond. This security accounted for 1,146,222 bonds traded, with a transaction value of 10.8863 billion CFA francs. That represented a major share of bond market activity for the week. For more cautious investors, bonds can offer more predictable income than stocks, especially when coupons are attractive. But investors still need to look at maturity, yield, liquidity, and the issuer's risk. On dividends, the BRVM season remains very active. The weekly dividend recap shows an average yield of 4.67%, with 34 paying companies out of 47 tracked. Among companies that have announced or paid dividends in 2026, we can mention Sonatel, Orange Côte d'Ivoire, BOA Côte d'Ivoire, BOA Burkina Faso, BOA Bénin, BOA Sénégal, BOA Mali, Ecobank, Côte d'Ivoire, Onatel, Corisbank, Palm Côte d'Ivoire, Sicable, BCC, SEB, Total Sénégal, and Server. To see the full dividend calendar, payment dates, and yields, download the Daba Finance app. Now, let's cover the key regional stories of the week. Côte d'Ivoire completed its program with the International Monetary Fund and was reclassified at low risk of debt distress. That is a strong signal for lenders and investors because it strengthens the country's financial credibility. The Ivorian economy is expected to grow by 6% in 2026, although inflation could rise to 3.3%. Another major story, Côte d'Ivoire is betting on private capital to finance its new National Development Plan, estimated at 114,138.5 billion CFA francs, or about $209 billion. The goal is for the private sector to finance 70% of the total. For investors, this means more projects, more public-private partnerships, and potentially more opportunities in infrastructure, agriculture, services, energy, and finance. In the WAEMU region, the BCEAO also extended the deadline for connection to the PISPI instant payment platform. Banks and payment institutions now have until September 30th, 2026, while some microfinance institutions have until June 30th, 2027. This reform matters. Faster and more interoperable payments can reduce costs for merchants, make transfers easier, and accelerate financial digitalization across the region. On the BRVM, Filtisac announced the closure of its spinning workshop as part of a restructuring of its jute business. Its 2025 net profit fell to 465.98 million CFA francs, compared with 18.59 billion CFA francs 1 year earlier. No dividend will be paid for 2025. For investors, this is a concrete example of operational risk. A company can grow revenue, but still see margins and cash flow weaken if costs rise too quickly. Looking ahead to next week, opportunities remain present, but they require method and discipline. The sectors to watch include banking, telecommunications, selected defensive stocks, and bonds offering attractive yields. We will not name the specific stocks here because those insights are reserved for Daba Pro subscribers. But the idea is simple. Focus on strong, liquid, well-managed companies with consistent results and clear prospects. To receive weekly recommendations, access exclusive research, track dividends, understand bonds, and reduce your investment fees, subscribe to Daba Pro. With Daba Pro, you do not just follow the markets, you stay ahead of them. And if you want to learn how to invest with more confidence, Daba Academy is here to guide you step by step. Good news, there is an ongoing promotion. Use the code PODCAST and get a 3,000 CFA franc discount on your Daba Academy registration. That was your weekly market recap with Markets Talk, the podcast by Daba Finance. See you soon. Stay curious, stay disciplined, and most importantly, stay invested.